We have guest number 2. We're in the month of July of 2024. It's been a very active month in college football, business side of things in the world. But we're going to try to keep this podcast on track here with guest number 2, Mike Quartey, and I did pronounce that right, correct, Mike?
Yeah, you were pretty close. Mike Quartey, somewhere in there.
Okay,
is definitely the correct one.
All right, Mike Quartey. Well, Mike, you and I obviously have talked a ton here. Phone conversations, the first time we're seeing each other face to face. What we're trying to do here is, we want to bring things back, kind of make it simple. Like College Football Players Association, we got a lot of goals, but goal number 1 is creating a fraternal players association that brings together past, present, and future college football players. And so this alumni member category, it's a diverse category in every way you can think about it.
Definitely.
We've got membership open to basically anybody who's ever played the game in the past. And so if you look at those members who are alumni members who support us for, $50 a month, $50 a year, I should say. It is a diverse body of former players. All right. So with all that said, when we start this podcast, I just say the same thing. I just want you to talk to everybody about what was your playing career, Mike? Take us back in time. I looked at the records, 96 to 2000 was when you played the game. And so walk us through, Mike. What was Mike Quartey's playing career?
It's interesting because that's today I wore my F&M Alumni Association. I went to Franklin Marshall College in Pennsylvania, the great state, and Lancaster. Definitely Amish country up there, but it's got a nice city and the like. And coming from New Jersey, it was a little bit of culture shock. Me, like a lot of players coming out of high school, was highly recruited from Division I schools all the way down to Division III. And my father, being a podiatrist, wanted me to go to the best school academically I got into. Not necessarily, the best athletically. So F&M was probably the best school, or one of the best that I got into. And I chose that route due to academics and athletics, and, played there for 4 years. Had a great time. It was a great school, learned a lot. Was an all-conference player, all-region, all that other stuff for a number of years. And when I was done, I was done. And I had an opportunity. I got an invite from a coach to go play with the Philadelphia Soul. But at the time, I was entering law school. So that summer after graduation and, law school, I got invited to go to camp as a linebacker with the Philadelphia Soul. And I chose staying the course and going to law school. And then years later, going back working in sports, becoming an NFL agent for a number of years. And then, brings me to my present day as founder and president of the Tropical Bowl and other all-star games. We have a series of games from small school all the way up to the Tropical Bowl, which is FBS. So
awesome. All right, let's back up. I want to get to the Tropical Bowl. We're going to talk a ton about that because I really want people to understand. Because, when you and I first met, that was the first time I heard, what is the Tropical Bowl? Yeah. When you signed up and you're talking about it, it's like, I hadn't heard of it. I want to make sure everybody knows about what it is. We'll talk about the sort of, I guess, politics around bowls like that, right?
Yep, definitely.
Okay, before we do that, tell me what the Philadelphia Soul is, because I think we're dating ourselves a little bit, right?
Well, dating ourselves a little bit, which is a pro, at the time, was a pro arena football league, and the Philadelphia Soul was the premier. It was owned by Bon Jovi and Ron Jaworski and the like. And back then it was a pretty powerful league. I think since it's had its stumbles, I think they're trying to resurrect it now. So it was not something I thought about playing. Once you go to a small school, especially back then in 1996 and 2000. There wasn't that many opportunities after college football to play pro, and you didn't know where to find it and where to go and the like. So I finished my playing days, and I actually went to an all-star game after my playing days in Ohio, and then tried to seek out opportunities. And at that time, I had a vision of the way the future could kind of be for an athlete. I kind of saw it on both sides, being recruited D1 and recruited by a lot of Division twos and Division three. So I kind of had a full scope of kind of the outlook, and I had teammates from high school that went on to major universities, and some even got drafted by the NFL. So I also knew there was a pathway to go pro, whether you went from Division one or down. Just didn't see the full vision on how it was capable. But that's kind of why I'm still continuing my work and helping out athletes of all levels.
All right, so talk about this. Let's still stay in the past here for a bit. D3 school, right? Pennsylvania, Franklin Marshall. I mean, I had to look it up when you signed up, right?
Right.
And we've got other D3 members. We've got current members who are D3. We got past members who are D3, like yourself. D2, FC. Actually, I think we're all levels of play now. We got JUCO, we got FCS, we got everybody. It's great.
Everybody, yeah.
Yep. And that's what we're trying to do, right? Bring people all these levels, like sort of break down the differences, I guess, is the best way to look at it, right? But talk to me, like late 90s D3 experience. I mean, what's that like? I mean, I guess what I picture, maybe this is my prejudices, I guess, or sort of what I have in my head is under-resourced. You guys, struggling, but what I don't, is that way off base? I mean,
well, there's definitely some positives and some things that can be tough. I would say with a school like F&M, it's a well-funded university. I mean, college. So in that sense, they might have a lot of more funds or ability to raise funds from alumni and the like than most small schools. So it's considered one of more elite academic schools. So there was still a lot of, as far as facilities and all those things, the resources were there. But, there's certain things where, with any Division III school, you're not going to have the same number of staff people, let's say, in the athletic department, or in the athletic training office, or, certain of those resources, whether it's, off-season weight room training. A lot of the coaches are going to volunteer. They're not going to have full-time paid most assistant staff coaches. So they might have one or two. I think when we were there, we only had one or two. One, and might have been the head coach, and maybe one additional that's a full-time staff member. The rest might be volunteer, at least back then. So you're talking about all, guys, coaches that have other jobs and teaching in the community and the like. I presume it's that way to this day. I have a few other coaches, some of our guys that have coached and alumni that are coaching now, and the resources aren't there for coaches. So obviously, that's going to trickle down to the players and their opportunity and access for those things. I was thankful to have a great head coach. My time there, who had been around for at the school for 30 years, so he was able to help us with academic support, monitoring, to help out, make sure people were able to graduate and successfully matriculate. So it's a lot. I would say F&M was great. It was great for us. But definitely looking at the future of athletics, I definitely think that the small school players should definitely be represented in some aspect, because there are a lot of schools that have a lot less resources than us. And then you look at even many HBCUs having issues with facilities and the like, and needing that support. So when you look at the full scope of it, it's not until you go into a Division I locker room or facility,
a little different,
and then you realize, oh well, wow, okay, well this is different, and obviously there is a difference, and there's no way around that, but it was definitely a great time for football, but there's always definitely advancements and improvements to be made.
What's the future for a D3 school like your alma mater? I mean, in the college football, like college football, when we think about like college football these days, we think about revenue sharing, Ohio State, Alabama. It's, But I really am like just so often thinking about, but what about the FCS schools? What about the D3 schools? What about, I got maps on my wall. There's over 900 college football programs in this country, right? I mean,
Mostly
what happens?
Division III. I think they are over 200. Then you've got FCS and Division II representing. So there's a lot of folks playing football. A lot of ports, we talk about obviously Power 5 and money, but we also got to talk about safety and injury. And so, that impact is still going to be there at the lower levels of playing the sport. So, I think that's, the biggest takeaway, obviously, from those small schools, they might not be revenue, generating as far as the sport. But that impact and football is 100% injury. You're going to get injured, playing the sport at some point. And so, whether it's short-term or long-term, outlook for those players, is a big deal. And I think that's important to look like, and to also remember that, those small schools are the backbone of the sport, because those guys, including myself, who was one of them, literally play for the love of the game, literally go to class all day. I'm somebody who had to work study to help supplement my education. So I went from class to practice, class to work study. I worked at the dining hall my freshman year, class to dining hall, to practice, and then, to study and whatever have you. So, it's interesting because those folks also support the universities that they go to just by being there. It's a big deal. You see schools that drop sports. Sometimes their enrollment is down. Sometimes they're closing up colleges right now. So, it's definitely most of those small schools like an F&M or other similar schools, a big part of their student population are athletes from all sports.
I know.
So it's something to think about.
I mean, I'm okay. A couple follow-up questions to everything you just said. First, I think about those D3 schools all the time, in the sense of like, man, a lot of times they're filling their student body with athletes who are paying full freight. Talk about no scholarship. No, these are people who are paying full tuition, right? And it's an enrollment strategy, right? I mean, let's keep up our enrollment. Let's make sure we don't have to close down our school. And is that sustainable, though? It just seems like, man, I mean, are you going to, like, let's say 10 years from now, Mike, we got an enrollment cliff coming next decade. Is it going to be enough, like, guys who just like to play ball, man, they're going to play for the love of the game, given what we know about the health and safety of football generally? Let's put it that way, right?
Right.
Is that D3 model, that D2 model, are those models sustainable in the future in your mind?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, with the cost of education, especially at a small private school, you got to wonder whether what that cliff is. Now, again, some schools like the one I went to may already be in demand, so they might not need the student body to fill seats. But there's schools in all over the country that do need that, and talking about Division III, and they're even talking, you're talking about Division II, and especially in the Northeast where I'm from, where football enrollment is down in general at the youth level.
Sure.
So I think about that because I'm in the sports business too. So I think about that because I'm thinking, in the Southeast, not as much, but Northeast was a big portion of. You get a lot of these smaller colleges. I'm sure it's a concern for academia, and it's definitely a concern, I'm sure, for the coaches that do it. And the students and athletes, are definitely some of the hardest working people at that level.
I know.
And academically challenging colleges. I don't know what it looks like, I don't know what it looks like. And I do, see schools that we've had players come from, and I go now to their website to look at the roster, and sometimes there is no roster anymore. There's no team, no
Wow.
football teams, but some of the smallest schools in kind of some rural areas and the like. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a concern, and I don't know what would fix that, if anything would. Um,
Yeah. I mean, okay, good. I mean, that's such great insight. I think these are questions which I don't think are thought of enough, quite frankly, in the
yeah,
debates that we're having, right? Because we are so focused on that top tier. And well, you can look at an Ohio State football player and say, well, that guy's an employee. It's pretty easy case to
right,
make, right?
right,
And given the amount of wealth he's generating, given the, just
right,
what it looks like at the top tier. But then, man, you go all the way down and it's like, okay, but are these folks employees? I mean, that's a little bit more tenuous for sure. And,
right, right,
they are, primarily because they are doing it for the love. They are doing it for the game, for the play. There's not this obvious sort of professionalism to it down at those levels, right?
right,
So then
right.
here's what I struggle with. And as we head to the future and we want to organize players at all different, at all these different levels, and you correctly cited, well, hey, the health and safety concerns aren't any different at a D3 school than they are at a D1 school. And they might be worse because that school's under-resourced, right?
Right.
And what do then we do when we're thinking about that health and safety component at the D3 level? Because going to have a collective bargaining agreement with a D3 conference? Probably not, right?
Probably not.
And so, but man, those guys are dealing with injury. They're dealing with, I don't know if you have any stories from your playing days in terms of what that looked like, but I think how can a players association like ours, as it grows here, I mean, how can it be in service to those guys down at those lower levels of play who are dealing with some of the same issues, but don't have some of the same obvious solutions to those problems?
Yeah, it's interesting because we, in the end, when we talk about sport, we just talk about team. So
Mm,
at the highest level, um, we can talk about collective bargaining and revenue share and all those things, which is obviously important and the driver of what makes those opportunities. But you see it with like something like the WNBA, and you have Caitlin Clark and you have Angela Reese, and they're able to bring funds that were collectively everybody can win, even though
mm,
there's tiers and maybe there's not the same financial incentive. Health and
mhm.
safety, if those resources, depending on what happens, if those resources do become available. Mental health, obviously, concussions are still a concern,
Yeah.
for football, but many other sports. Access to those types of things is about being a team of saying, hey, we all have a common shared um, college experience of playing a sport and dealing with some of these things that result from it. And maybe some players aren't on a certain level as other players, but those other players should also definitely think about using some of the resources and some of their leverage
Mhm,
to
mhm.
support the sport in general, because the sport has to continue to grow in general, overall, for even the model to be sustainable at all levels of
Mhm.
play in the future, when the sport is under fire.
Yeah.
And some people are putting their kids in flag before they are in
Yeah.
tackle football.
I mean, like, do you have kids, Mike? I think we've talked about this, but
Yeah,
I
I have,
can
I have,
remember.
I have a 10-year-old boy. Yeah,
So what do you think about this? Because I do believe now, and I'm recalling we had a conversation. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I've got a 12-year-old son. Son's not interested in football. That's fine
hmm
with me. He's
hmm
got other,
other
athletic
interests, right?
interests. Yep. Um, Daughter is playing flag,
Okay.
right? And and so I don't have to worry about the question of, well, would I let her play, tackle football, right? And
Right.
or at what age would I allow her to try something like that? I don't have to worry about that. And then with my son, because he's not interested, I don't have to
Mhm.
worry. What about your son? What's that look like? Does he want to play football? Are you comfortable with him playing? What's it look like?
Well, even with my son, I mean, he has other interests. He's one of those math whizzes.
Yeah.
But even and then, I've definitely, I'm not a helicopter dad, so definitely, not going to make him do something, I want to do. I think tackle football specifically is not for everybody. It's kind of like boxing. Sometimes it's you don't choose this. You don't choose a sport. The sport chooses you. And maybe one day he wants to play. He's definitely interested in flag. He's played that. I think the popularity of flag football is amazing. We actually are hosting men and women flag tournament next week, SoFi.
That's cool.
Well, yeah, USA versus Mexico as well as our men. Just to put that plug in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that sport is growing. It's something that we recognized. But even then, from somebody who played the sport, and especially in the 90s, it was a very aggressive sport compared to the game's a lot safer in general right now. You worry about mental health, you worry about concussions, long-term effects, and a lot of people that I've talked to that are former players have said, even if they want their son to play tackle, some of them will just start them off in flag and play that for a while. And especially as a young developing mind, it can be scary for anyone, and the sport's not for everyone. That sport specifically, tackle, it's not for football. It's just not for everyone. So it's definitely something you wrestle with. And growing up, we kind of had hard heads, and we thought, we didn't think about that stuff, and it didn't matter, and you just wanted to be tough, and that's all that mattered. But as we have more information, we've got more growth in thought. So I think we've got to change the mentality of that. And small schools are usually left out of the picture in any of these type of discussions.
I mean, especially the concussion discussion. I do think there are things like Chris Nowinski, who heads up the Concussion Legacy Foundation. I've talked with a handful of different times, and how can we? They have a concussion team captain program that they try to implement wherever they can, high school, college level, whatever it is. And I just think it's such a simple solution because you need to just change the mindset around this. If your teammate is concussed, if it is obvious to you, it is your responsibility as a teammate to call that out. I think even if we can just change that, it changes the culture around the issue.
Culture of it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we got to do that because I think there's still too much of this kind of old school mentality of, you got your bell rung, get back in there, right? As opposed to, no, if you got your bell rung, you're concussed. And so it means you need to come out and play. Even John Madden, he was so great about saying, like, look, if a fighter is knocked out in boxing, he's done. Like, he's concussed. He's got a brain injury that has to heal. I think it doesn't matter what level of play you're at. I think that type of solution in terms of changing the culture around concussions is just that needs to be implemented everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we hope to be a part of that, because a brain injury is the same as any other injury. It's got to heal before your brain is ready to be back into play, or we get to these sort of mental health concerns, which I quite frankly in football think if a football player is having mental health concerns, a lot of the times it's like he's got a brain injury and that it's not healed, right? And we just got to change the thinking around this. Okay, I want to get to the Tropical Bowl. Because when you initially reached out and you filled out your membership form, and I'm like, I would love getting new members because it's like, who is this person, right?
This is guy.
And you and I obviously had a couple conversations before you became a member. Sometimes that's what it takes, and you became a member, and then I learned more about you, and we talked. All right, so you now are working on the Tropical. Tell everybody what the Tropical Bowl is, because I learned it first from you, and let's just give everybody the rundown of what the Tropical Bowl is.
Yeah, the Tropical Bowl, and I'll preface to say that the Tropical is our premier event we do each year. It's a college football all-star game in Orlando each January. It features the top FBS players in the country, FBS Division I major schools. We've had last year we players from Alabama, Auburn. We've had players from LSU, A ton of players go to the NFL each year from the game. Almost every NFL team comes and scouts the game. And this is our 10th anniversary.
Nice.
Will be in January.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I've been in this business 17 years ago. I was an NFL agent for 4 years, and then 13 years ago I started running All-Star games. But I actually didn't start with the Tropical Bowl. I didn't start with Division I. Started running combines in the All-Star game called the National Bowl for Division II to Division III players. So they were our original, and a lot of innovation, comes from that level, from Division II, Division III, because you don't have the same parameters that you're going to have, right, as staff and coaches at the higher levels. Sure. And we were able to build those games up, and eventually they got so popular. We had so many Division I players that wanted to attend, and we kind of thought, oh, well, this is kind of for them. They don't have the same opportunity, but we were able to kind of start the Tropical Bowl, and started that now almost 10 years ago. And we also recruit several small schoolers from those smaller school events that stand out to the Tropical Bowl. And this year we had a great player, an FCS player who stood out at our FCS National Bowl, and he went to the Tropical Bowl and he won overall MVP, beating out all the Division 1A players, right? And he was drafted by the Vikings and was considered by the Atlantic and New York Times as Prospect X, the most underrated player in the draft. And so, the Tropical Bowl is so important because it gives players an opportunity to showcase themselves to the NFL. But we've also figured out a pipeline to give players an opportunity to kind of level the playing field from smaller schools if they have enough ability to play at that level to get that. And some of our most premier alumni are small school guys. Division II, we had a kid, Kenny Moore. I say he's a kid. He's a grown man now at $38 million contract. He's definitely grown. He got $38 million contract with the Colts, and he started at our Division II, Division III game. He went to Valdosta State, Division II, and he paid his own way and invested in himself, and he got there and he performed, and he ended moving up, and it changed his life. So it's a very coming from somebody who was coming out of high school, recruited Division I, but chose a Division III. I'm able to kind of see both pathways of opportunity, and some players don't end up at a Division II FCS or Division III because of ability. Many times it's due to choices or circumstances or for whatever reason why. But sometimes it can carry a scarlet letter when you're talking about going advancing after that. So it's definitely, in that sense, we've definitely not left those guys behind in that process.
Okay, that's really well said. All of that.
I'm passionate about it, Jason.
I can tell, and I can tell from our previous conversations, and I will just be straight and be honest with you here. You're somebody who's brought me around to the issue, because I think when you first started telling me about it, I was like, man, I don't know. We need to be having sort of lower, it's not the East-West Shrine Bowl, right?
Right.
Do we need to have these games where we're asking guys in some cases to pay their way, right? Now, I, as a player advocate, when you first told me about this, I was like, what do I think about this, right? And then, so you sent me some articles, there's a good article I urge everybody to check out. Maybe we'll link it here in the notes later on from New York Times about these games, right? Yours and others like yours. And that I thought really brought me around to the issue where I was like, okay, I can see this now, right? Where, a lot of times it's actually not the player who's paying his way, it's the agent. Right. And where the agent's footing the bill because the agent says, no, this guy stands out. Right. And we want to make sure he gets a look. And so but there's a lot of politics around this. And very recently, though, the NFL sort of declared that agents were not allowed to go to some of these games where players paid their way.
Well, it was actually agents can go, but the actual
scouts.
league
Yes.
scouts could not attend.
Yes,
yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of rule changes this past year that the league put out for their attendance at All-Star games. And our Tropical Bowl is not one of those events that you generally have to pay a fee to go to and fund. So, with the FBS players, that kind of didn't kind of fall in the corridor, but some of our smaller school games like the FCS National Bowl did. And it was a rule that affected not just us, a lot of games that have been able to produce a lot of talent over the years. And so the NFL, put out some new rules, and some of them were, I thought were fair, and kind of were already in place or in the like. But some of them definitely affected us, our game, and other games. The biggest thing that we kind of had was, we'd love some input. So, not just, reactionary, but proactively, we'd love to be involved. Whether our input, it makes sense or not, we'd love to be involved in some way. So we had some discussions with the league office. So we were able to come up with a plan so the games were able to continue on, and certain fees could be charged and some others couldn't, and the like. But it's definitely made it difficult. You used to have some games that they were already teetering on bankruptcy already,
Sure.
Because football is it's an expensive sport. I mean, there's no way around it. It's an expensive sport. And so, it's interesting because what some of the rules would serve to do was to kind of remove an opportunity that some of those small school kids that wouldn't have an opportunity to go to, let's say, the Senior Bowl, which is a premier game, wouldn't get to go. And again, it's also, with that being said, all the leagues scout the game. So we might have players go to the NFL, but we also have players that go to the CFL, Canadian Football League. We also have players that go to the arena football, Philadelphia Soul, right? So that was an opportunity. Where UFL now, they all those leagues scout the game, and now you even get international scouting. There's the Japan X League, and there's a European Football League, and the Japan X League pays six figures to players, and they're looking for players. Yeah, so the sport's growing internationally. We're in the middle of the Olympics. And so you see the NBA team that's out there playing a lot of these guys, and it's competitive. I think it's important, just from a football standpoint, to grow the sport and not put a hamper on a lot of the people that are on the ground doing it. And so we're still going, and we worked it out with the league, but definitely moving forward, especially with all the changes in college football, we always just want to have a seat at the table to do it, because we run both. Again, we run the top level game that those rules don't really affect, the Tropical Bowl, but then we also run the small school All-Star games.
Got it.
The reason why they're successful is because they work, because we've actually produced the leading scorer of 2015 of the Dolphins was a Division III player that we had that paid, so, though it's definitely a process that works. And again, I get to see the same struggles between the FBS, FCS, Division II, and Division III firsthand, because I actually work with all of them. And so we like to see the player that comes from the smallest level that goes the furthest, we take the most pride in, versus a player that might already be at the top, who might just need a little bit of exposure, but has all the facilities and the like available to him to be able to advance that next level. A lot of those other guys don't, but they're still playing, and they deserve a shot. And I think as long as you can have an opportunity, that's all you can ask for. Whether things fall the way they do, that's just how it is. But I think, when I came out, there wasn't that opportunity. There was no opportunity really, and so in that sense, we don't want to go backwards either.
Yeah, all right, that makes sense. What's the stink? Because I guess this falls into the same conversations we had about D3 ball or D2 ball or FCS ball. What's the future look like for bowl games like the ones you run as college football? The conversation around college football is this is high level stuff. And of course you got the Tropical Bowl, which is FBS. What about those smaller tier bowls?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting, I don't want to tell all my goodies, but I've had scouts, in the last few years say, oh yeah, these type of games might not exist in the future because, players are going to demand payment to go to them.
That's where I was going to go with my next question. That's where I was going to go.
And so, and even with us, with our Tropical Bowl, we've always been ahead of the curve. We did the first deal with Flow Sports for football. We're streaming. We kind of, we're fairly young, so we try to be ahead of the curve. So even then, we're working on, have an opportunity where we can offer players equity as NIL to be a part of the event because we don't have the cash per se, right? But we can offer them a long-term goal because what happens with these players is many of them will make the league, but some of them won't. And they'll come back to us and say, I want to be a football coach. Can I coach? And we say, well, why don't you go to your college? And they say, well, they won't let me. I say, why don't you volunteer? They want me to do that. So we take on a lot of them. We have a women's internship, women's internship program with the bowl. Where each year we coach. Lori Locust is one of our former coaches. She's an NFL coach now, Super Bowl winning NFL coach.
That's awesome.
We work with her, and each year we pick an outstanding woman to come and work with the coaches. And I think we now are up to 4 coaches, and our coaches that are the guys, they love them, and now we're up to 4, and they don't leave, and they coach with us each year. And many of them have gone on to the NFL or have that NFL background for whether it's internship programs and the like. So very experienced, and just the best that they do. But it's just interesting because the landscape is going to change, and I think the Arizona Bowl, Snoop and those guys are going to start offering payments.
Yes,
and payments great, but long term, that that money gets spent. But long term, do you have a vested interest? And this is where I come in as a former athlete and as the only African American owned postseason college football bowl game.
Yeah, I bet.
Is to say, are you going to cut some of these players in equity wise? Now you're the collective bargaining guy, but it's very interesting. I think we want to be on the forefront of that, and we're trying to mobilize our college football alumni that we have. We've had thousands that have come to our game to be a part of that. To say, hey, invest in us, and we'll invest back, and we'll invest in the future of the sport, which is the players. Because if not, why? If they are a top level player, why do they need to go to bowl games? Why do that's what's been on the table, and you're seeing it. That guys are opting out of their college ones, but even with college all-star games that are getting big sponsorships, what we don't have in the future, are those sponsorships going to be there? Is that money going to be there? If are the players going to recognize their true value? So again, obviously you're on top of it, and we've definitely been on top of it, and we're trying to make the changes in as much as we can with those top level players from Power 5 or D1 or what have you that are the cream of the crop. Everybody knows it, and they do have a certain value. And how can we help them versus or work with them versus it just being a take situation? And players know what's going on now. They know what's up. And they're aware.
Well, I think it's a great place to end here, because this has been fantastic conversation. But I think what you're gesturing towards here at the end, in thinking about these bowls, and thinking about what's the overarching theme here, I guess, of our talk, is sustainability. What is sustainable in the college football ecosystem as we head forward to the future, right? And a lot of what you and I had talked about is, I think more projects are more sustainable if past, present, and future players come together in a players association, right? Because right now there's this sort of fragmentation where there's silos. Oh, I'm over here doing this and I'm over here doing this. And if people could come together in a single institution to try to better communicate with one another, right, as we're trying to do here, right? I think a lot of these projects are going to be sustainable and safer over the long term, as we're talking about the health and safety component, right? Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. Obviously, you and I had, I'd say 3 conversations before you became an alumni member. Sometimes that's what it takes, and I get that. And, and I ask everybody to speak. Maybe you can end here. We have conversations with guys all the time about becoming an alumni member. You're an alumni. Why'd you choose to become an alumni member of the College Football Players Association?
It's a good thing that, like, that we were able to talk and meet. I think it's something that's been needed for a long time. And I, when I saw it, I thought, oh man, I think this is it. And this was before even like there was thoughts of, like collective bargaining. Like I didn't have that thought. I just thought, at some point you need to have a voice, and I'm also practicing attorney as well. And so, I understand it. And I think the voice and, some people think, oh, well, players are being greedy and the like. I don't think that at all. I think that the players are made the scapegoat of the imagery of just generally how they are, but they're almost all college graduates. They're very educated individuals. They're working triple time, and nobody seems that's not an athlete, which is most people, right? Just don't seem to get it. And I think they have to have that voice, and they have to have that voice themselves to be able to speak up and explain what's going on. Because when you show the average person a Division I work day, again, I was recruited at that level, and I chose to go to a smaller school, but I know what it is. And I saw it, and I saw the workouts, and I saw what's going on, and great achievement. But at the end of the day, the player, is a grown man most of the time, and and they need to have an opportunity to be able to speak their piece and be represented. And if you're not represented and don't have that, those things and due process and all those things that we hold dearly, I think you're doing them a disservice, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help the sport. I think you see it now with all this NIL money and all this other money that this money's been there the whole time, and wasn't going to affect anybody's bottom line at all. But there was a theory and an imagery of that, because people felt like these players should not have any money, but players didn't have any money. They did. Some of them couldn't order a pizza. And those things. So it's just I love the work you're doing, Jason. You and your team and the like. And if I ever can support and be a supporter of what you're doing and help out, definitely looking forward to it. And we work with athletes all day, every day, literally year round. So we're very unique in that sense. And I see the benefit of former NFLPA agent myself. So I see the benefit of it. And I think, a lot of the stuff you see happens for pro has to happen for college football. And so, just keep up the good fight, I always say.
That's right. It's a fight. Definitely
I know it's uphill, but
100%.
when it's right, at some point you get to the top of it. So
I feel like we're going to win, and I feel like we are going to win because it's these networks, right? It's the people. It is bringing people together who had previously been in their different silos, doing their different things, all caring about football, all caring about the players, but there had been no way to bring them together. And that's what we're building here. And so, Mike, I very much appreciate you being a part of it.
Appreciate you.
And appreciate you being on the podcast here. And I know you and I are going to continue to talk offline, but God bless you. I really hope that, I really hope you're, the tropical bulls and you bulls continue to thrive even into this future that's a little bit hazy. And who knows, maybe College Football Players Association becomes part of that, because I do think, and I have been very convinced that the efforts that you have undertaken in these bowl games do need to continue. And so I really wish you success. All right. This is College Football Players Association podcast. This is our alumni member of the month, Mike Quartey. This is the month of July 2024. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Jason.